December 19, 1944, 10:30 a.m. Verdun, France. Inside a stone schoolhouse turned headquarters, cigarette smoke hangs low beneath bare rafters. Boots scrape across cold tile. The Ardennes offensive is only 3 days old, but already it feels older, heavier. The kind of crisis that ages men by the hour. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands at the center of the room, hands planted on the edge of a long wooden table. The map beneath them is a mess of pins and grease pencil arrows, German thrusts stabbing westward through the Ardennes forest. Red lines overlap blue. Units are missing. Some are surrounded. Some haven't reported in at all. Outside, snow falls in thick, silent sheets. Inside, no one speaks. Eisenhower's eyes move from one commander to the next. Bradley, Montgomery's liaison officers, senior staff from SHAEF. Faces drawn, jawlines tight. Everyone in the room understands the same brutal truth. Hitler has thrown everything he has left into this gamble. Panzer divisions. Fuel reserves scraped from the bottom of Germany's tanks. This is not a raid. This is a last throw of the dice. Eisenhower breaks the silence. "Gentlemen," he says quietly, "where do we stand?" The answers come slowly, hesitant, fragmented. Reports contradict one another. Roads are jammed. Weather has grounded Allied air power. German columns have punched deeper than expected. Bastogne is surrounded. The northern shoulder is bending. The southern flank is uncertain. This is not how Eisenhower planned to win the war. You can almost feel the cold creeping into the room, not just from the winter outside, but from the realization settling in. This is going to be a grinding fight. Slow, costly, the kind that chews up divisions and weeks at a time. Then the door opens. General George S. Patton strides in late, polished helmet tucked under one arm, riding crop in hand. His Third Army is positioned far to the south, facing east, not north. By every conventional measure, he should be the least relevant man in the room. Instead, he looks calm, almost impatient. Patton snaps to attention, salutes, then moves directly to the map without waiting to be invited. A few eyebrows rise. Eisenhower watches him closely. He knows Patton's reputation: brilliant, reckless, dangerous when unchecked. The man who moves too fast, the man who needs reins. But this morning, Patton doesn't look reckless. He looks ready. Eisenhower gestures to the map. "George," he says, "what can you do?" Patton doesn't hesitate. "My Third Army can attack north," he says, voice sharp and precise, "with 3 divisions, 48 hours. The room stills. Someone lets out a short, disbelieving breath. 48 hours. The weather alone makes that impossible. Roads are frozen. Units are oriented the wrong direction. Fuel is scarce. Communications are breaking down. Eisenhower turns fully toward him. "You mean you could attack?" he asks. Patton shakes his head. "No, sir, I mean we will." He reaches into his coat and pulls out folded papers, clean, typed orders. He spreads them across the table like a magician revealing cards. Operational plans, march routes, timetables, division assignments. Patton has already done the work. While other commanders were still trying to understand where the Germans were, Patton's staff had planned for this moment days ago, quietly, methodically. Contingencies stacked atop contingencies. If the Germans strike north, pivot. If they strike south, pivot. If the weather closes in, push anyway. Eisenhower picks up one of the pages. He reads. And reads again. This isn't bravado. This isn't Patton bluster. This is a fully formed counterattack, one that doesn't react to the German offensive but seizes it. A hammer blow aimed straight at the exposed flank of the Bulge, toward Bastogne, toward the heart of Hitler's gamble. Eisenhower feels it then, not relief, something sharper. Clarity. The initiative, the most fragile thing in war, has already shifted. While the German High Command believes the Allies are stunned, disorganized, scrambling to survive, Patton is already moving. already turning defense into offense, already planning not how to stop the blow, but how to answer it with one of his own. Around the table, the mood changes. Skepticism gives way to focus. Questions come faster now. Fuel requirements, road conditions, unit readiness. Patton answers everyone without missing a beat. You can see it on Eisenhower's face, the moment he understands what this means. If Patton succeeds, the German offensive doesn't just stall, it collapses, and with it, Germany's last real chance to change the war in the West. Eisenhower looks down at the map again. This time, he sees it differently. Not as a crisis, but as an opening. And in that instant, the battle is no longer Hitler's to win, but Patton to finish. The room doesn't erupt. There's no cheering, no dramatic exchange. Just the low scrape of chairs and the quiet realization spreading from officer to officer that something extraordinary has just happened. Eisenhower straightens. "George," he says, "you go. That's all. No qualifiers, no hedging, no committee. In a war defined by coalitions and compromises, this is a rare, absolute grant of authority." Eisenhower is trusting Patton not just with an attack, but with the momentum of the entire Western Front. Patton snaps another salute. "Yes, sir." And with that, the decision is no longer theoretical. It's alive. Within minutes, Patton is back outside in the cold, breath fogging the air as he climbs into his command car. The snow crunches beneath boots, engines idle, radios crackle to life. Somewhere to the south, an entire army, over 250,000 men, still faces east, unaware that their war is about to pivot 90 degrees. Patton pulls his gloves tighter and leans toward his chief of staff, Major General Hobart Gay. "Send the word," Patton says. "Execute." Those 6 letters ripple outward like a shockwave. Division headquarters receive the signal first, then regiments, then battalions. Orders move faster than men ever could, coded messages slicing through static and snow. Columns halt, turn, start again. Trucks grind their gears as drivers wrestle steering wheels across icy roads. Maps are flipped, compasses recalibrated. Entire supply chains reverse direction in the dark. You can almost feel the confusion at the front. Soldiers who went to sleep facing Germany wake up facing north, toward an unknown fight. Some haven't even heard of Bastogne yet. They just know the roads are bad, the cold is brutal, and Patton wants them moving now. The weather does everything it can to stop them. Snow thickens, ice glazes the roads, visibility drops to yards, tanks slide into ditches, trucks jackknife on hills. Engineers work by feel more than sight, laying down corduroy roads and clearing wrecks under blackout conditions. Patton doesn't slow them. He rides the columns relentlessly. Standing in his jeep, shouting through a bullhorn, voice hoarse but unmistakable. "Men, we're going to relieve Bastogne, and we're going to do it fast." For the soldiers of the Third Army, this is familiar. Patton always demands the impossible. What's different now is the clock. Every hour matters. In Bastogne, the 101st Airborne is surrounded, low on ammunition, wounded piling up in freezing barns and cellars. German artillery pounds the perimeter day and night. Inside Bastogne, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe listens to shells crash into frozen ground and wonders how long they can hold. He has no idea that, far to the south, an entire army is clawing its way toward him through snow and darkness. Back at SHAEF, Eisenhower receives updates by the hour. Third Army is moving. Third Army is on schedule. The reports don't quite make sense. Units are covering distances staff officers said were unrealistic. Roads marked impassable on Allied maps are being forced open by sheer will and steel. Fuel is appearing where there shouldn't be fuel. Traffic jams untangle themselves just in time. Eisenhower listens, says little. But privately, he feels something shift again. This isn't just a counterattack, it's a psychological blow. If Patton breaks through, German commanders will realize too late that the Allies are not reacting, they are dictating. And the Germans are watching too. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt receives fragmentary intelligence of unusual movement south of the Bulge. Columns moving north, lots of them, too fast, too organized. He frowns at the reports, orders more reconnaissance. The weather has grounded aircraft. Confirmation is slow, uncertain. But a doubt creeps in. Hitler had counted on paralysis, on hesitation, on fear. Instead, something is coming. On December 22nd, 4 days after Eisenhower's meeting, Patton's lead elements, Combat Command B of the 4th Armored Division, reach the outskirts of Bastogne. The fighting is savage. German anti-tank guns blaze from tree lines. Panthers lurk behind hedgerows. Shermans burn. Men die in the snow. But the attack does not stop. At 4:50 p.m., a single American tank punches through German lines near Eisenhower. Infantry follows, weapons up, boots slipping on frozen ground. A narrow corridor opens, fragile, dangerous, but real. Inside Bastogne, the sound changes. American artillery answers German fire. The wounded look up. Medics freeze in place. Relief. The siege is broken. When Eisenhower receives the confirmation, he closes his eyes for just a moment. It's done. Not the battle, not yet, but the gamble, the one Hitler staked everything on. Patton has cracked it. And now, with the Bulge beginning to collapse, Eisenhower understands the full truth of what he witnessed in that smoke-filled room days earlier. The Germans didn't lose the Ardennes when Patton reached Bastogne. They lost it the moment Eisenhower realized Patton had already moved. But even as the Allies celebrate, Patton is already thinking ahead, because for him, relief is not enough. He wants annihilation. And the war is about to enter its most unforgiving phase. The corridor into Bastogne is narrow, dangerously narrow. German artillery still brackets the road. Snow absorbs the blood, then turns pink, then disappears beneath passing tracks. Relief has arrived, yes, but the battle is far from over. Patton knows this. He doesn't pause to celebrate. He doesn't allow his commanders to linger on the emotional victory. To him, Bastogne is not an ending. It is a hinge. Keep moving, he tells them. Pressure, relentless pressure. The German plan had relied on time. Time to seize fuel depots. Time to split the Allied front. Time to force negotiations. Every hour Patton denies them tightens the noose. From his forward command post, Patton studies reports as they arrive, scribbled notes, radio transcripts, muddy after-action messages. He sees what the Germans cannot yet admit. Their offensive has lost its rhythm. Units meant to spearhead the drive to the Meuse are stalled, forced to turn and face a threat that should not exist. Speed has shattered the illusion of control. On the German side, confusion spreads. Panzer divisions that were supposed to surge west now receive contradictory orders, hold ground, then counterattack, then redeploy south. Fuel shortages grow acute. Trucks abandoned in ditches freeze solid overnight. Crews siphon gasoline from wrecks under fire. The weather begins to clear. On December 23rd, the sky opens. Sunlight cuts through the clouds like a blade, glinting off snow and steel. Allied aircraft roar overhead, P-47 Thunderbolts, P-51 Mustangs, diving on German columns suddenly exposed in the open. Bombs walk across roads. Strafing runs rip through supply convoys. The Luftwaffe barely answers. Eisenhower watches the reports roll in with grim satisfaction. The fog that protected the German advance has lifted at the worst possible moment for them. And still Patton pushes. Third Army units attack, regroup, attack again. Villages change hands multiple times in a single day. Names like Chaumont, Bougainville, and Martelange blur together in a haze of smoke and snow. This is not a clean battle. It's exhaustion layered on exhaustion. Frostbite cases climb, weapons jam, men sleep in minutes, not hours, and yet the line keeps bending, this time eastward. Eisenhower receives an intelligence summary late one evening. German commanders are arguing. Rundstedt and Model disagree on priorities. Hitler issues rigid orders from Berlin, demanding ground be held that cannot be held. For the first time since the offensive began, the German High Command is reacting. Eisenhower leans back, eyes closed, and thinks again of that moment. Patton standing over the map, calm, certain, already in motion. This is what Patton understood instinctively. Wars are not won by perfect plans. They are won by seizing the moment when the enemy still believes he has won. By early January, the Bulge is shrinking. Allied pincers squeeze from north and south. Montgomery advances cautiously. Patton advances like a blade. German units retreat under constant pressure, leaving behind shattered equipment and frozen dead. The last reserves are gone. The gamble has failed. And now Eisenhower sees the final consequence, one that goes beyond territory or casualties. Germany has spent its last operational flexibility. From this point on, every move will be forced, every defense reactive. The initiative is not just lost. It is unrecoverable. Yet Eisenhower also knows something else. Victories like this come with a cost, especially when won at Patton's pace. Casualties mount, tempers flare, Allied unity strains under contrasting styles of command. And Patton himself is already pushing toward the next confrontation, not just with the enemy, but with his own allies. Because as the guns in the Ardennes begin to fall silent, a different tension is rising, one that will test Eisenhower's leadership just as severely as Hitler's last gamble ever did. The Ardennes recedes behind them, but the war does not ease its grip. January 1945. The snow is thinner now, churned into gray sludge by tanks and trucks that never seem to stop. Patton's Third Army keeps advancing east, pressing battered German units back toward the Siegfried Line. Villages fall one by one. Bridges are seized before they can be blown. Every delay the Germans hope for is denied. And this is where the strain begins to show. At SHAEF, Eisenhower studies casualty reports with a tightening jaw. The numbers are high, higher than he'd like. Patton's tempo extracts a price. Men pushed to the edge of endurance, supply lines stretched to snapping. Allied commanders argue. Some insist the advance should pause, consolidate, regroup. Montgomery's methodical approach has its supporters. The front is wide. The weather still unpredictable. Why risk mistakes now that victory is inevitable? Patton hears the murmurs and scoffs. Fixed ideas, he calls them. That's how wars are lost. From his perspective, this is the moment to strike hardest. German morale is broken. Units are under strength. Command and control is in tatters. To slow now would be to give the enemy something precious, time. Eisenhower stands between them. He knows Patton is right about one thing: momentum matters. But Eisenhower is not just commanding an army, he's commanding an alliance. British and American forces must move together. Politics presses from Washington and London. Every decision carries consequences beyond the battlefield. And yet, Eisenhower cannot ignore what his eyes tell him. Patton's army is performing the work of two. Where others meet resistance and pause, Third Army probes, flanks, bypasses. Patton's doctrine, attack everywhere all the time, keeps German commanders off balance. They never know where the main effort lies because, for Patton, everything is the main effort. Reports from the German side grow darker. Interrogations reveal collapsing discipline. Officers admit they no longer expect reinforcement. Fuel allocations are measured in liters. Ammunition is hoarded, then abandoned when units are overrun. One captured German major says it plainly, "We cannot match your speed." Eisenhower reads that line twice. He thinks back to the Ardennes, to the moment Patton produced a plan before the crisis had fully formed, to the realization that the battle had already been decided in that smoke-filled room. This is the same principle expanded, speed as a weapon, initiative as dominance. But speed has a shadow. On February 3rd, Patton is injured in a freak accident. His staff car collides with a truck near Mannheim. He is thrown violently, his neck broken. The news races through headquarters like a shockwave. Eisenhower is stunned. For a brief, terrifying moment, the question hangs in the air. Can this momentum survive without the man who created it? Third Army slows, but it does not stop. The systems Patton built, the mindset he enforced, keep the machine moving. Commanders who once bristled under his pressure now emulate it. They attack because that is what they have been trained to do. Eisenhower exhales. Patton's body is failing, but his way of war remains. As the Rhine approaches, Eisenhower prepares for the final crossings into Germany. The stakes are enormous. A misstep here could cost tens of thousands of lives. And once again, Eisenhower faces the same question he faced in December. How much speed is enough? How much is too much? The answer will come soon, on the banks of the Rhine, where hesitation could be fatal, and audacity could end the war months early. March 7, 1945, late afternoon. Remagen, Germany. The Rhine flows cold and fast beneath low clouds, its surface broken by debris and smoke. For months, the river has loomed in Allied planning like a wall, Germany's last great natural barrier. Every bridge was expected to be destroyed, every crossing contested. This was supposed to be the final, deliberate set-piece battle of the war in the West. Then a report arrives. A bridge at Remagen still stands. Eisenhower reads the message once, then again. An intact span across the Rhine, the Ludendorff Bridge, captured almost by accident by elements of the U.S. 9th Armored Division. It shouldn't be possible. German demolition charges failed. The guards panicked. American infantry ran forward under fire and seized the crossing before the moment vanished. Eisenhower doesn't hesitate. "Exploit it," he orders. And in that instant, the lesson of Patton's war becomes doctrine for the entire Allied command. No pauses, no perfect alignment. When opportunity appears, you take it, because it will not wait. Across the front, armies surge. Patton's Third Army, now under new leadership but still moving with his relentless logic, finds crossings of its own farther south. Engineers throw pontoon bridges across the Rhine under fire. Tanks rumble east. Infantry pour through gaps that grow wider by the hour. The German defense collapses in layers. Cities fall without a fight. Entire divisions surrender en masse. White flags appear from windows, from church towers, from shattered bunkers along the Autobahn. Eisenhower toured the advancing front weeks later, standing amid the wreckage of what was once Hitler's Reich. The war is not officially over yet, but everyone knows the truth. Germany has no moves left. The Ardennes was the last gamble. Remagen proved the house was empty. And Eisenhower understands, with a clarity born of exhaustion and hindsight, that the war's outcome was sealed not at the Rhine, but back in December, in that cold room in Verdun, when one general arrived with a plan already written. When speed replaced fear. When the initiative changed hands and never came back. Patton would not live to see the full victory. In December 1945, months after Germany's surrender, he would die from complications of that roadside accident. His end would be quiet, almost anticlimactic, so unlike the life he lived. Eisenhower would go on to lead a nation. But in his private moments, He would remember the man who forced him to trust momentum when caution felt safer. The general who understood, perhaps better than anyone else, that wars are decided in moments, brief windows when action matters more than certainty. The moment Eisenhower realized Pat had already won the battle was not a triumph of ego or brilliance. It was the sound of the clock running out for Nazi Germany. And once it began ticking, nothing could stop it. End